Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Lowe, the Industry Partner Program Manager here at ASID. We're delighted to have you all with us for today's Partner Spotlight webinar presented by Benjamin Moore. The Partner Spotlight webinar series is an ongoing initiative by ASID. It's designed to provide you with the opportunity to interact with ASID industry partners, manufacturers, and industry experts in a virtual environment. After the presentation, we will have a Q&A session where you can submit your questions in the control panel and I'll read them out aloud. Today, we're excited to have Hannah Yo, Senior Manager, Color Marketing with Benjamin Moore. We hope you find this session both informative and engaging. Now I'm going to hand it over to Hannah to introduce herself and kick off the presentation.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah, and I am the Senior Manager of Color Marketing and Development here at Benjamin Moore. I am so excited to be with you today. All of you, thank you for joining us. And I'll be sharing some of the thought process behind Color Trends 2026, as well as Benjamin Moore Color of the Year. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so, sorry, that was a little too far advanced. So every fall, our team really comes together to discuss the next color trends. It's really a year-long process. However, as designers, you guys know that it's never really just stop and go. We're always looking out to see what feels fresh, what feels new, and taking notes on that. We're going to trade shows, trend talks, what's popping up at the museum, new exhibitions, but not just in the interior design industry. I mean, of course, we look at it, but we look at it design across industries, such as fashion, automotive, graphic design. We're also looking at, what some of the designers are collaborating, brands collaborating, as well as looking at, cultural influences, economical influences, or environmental, anything that kind of shapes the way that we surround ourselves with is something that we take note. And what we do is we take all of that data and we gather together, and after months of discussions, we really synthesize that through the lens of paint. Because at Benjamin Moore, we want to make sure that however all the sentiments that are up in the air, we want to translate that into a paint color that can be applied to either interior or exterior that would be relevant for the years to come. The other thing that we look at is what we call the evolution of hues. So we want to be mindful of where we've been in the past and how it progresses. And so you can see this chart here all the way on the left-hand side, all the colors that says 2023, it's very bold and saturated, bright hues. And that was very much needed at the time. I mean, if you want to take a time machine back with me here at 2023, that was starting to get out of this pandemic era where, for a long time we've been very, enclosed, but in 2023, that's when we were like, okay, guys, we're ready for a splash of color. That was very needed at the moment, which is why it's reflected through that palette. Then all the way on the right, we start seeing some of the softer hues, the in-between hues that was up and coming in 2025. And I think that's much more of a quieter approach. And then in the middle column is kind of like that transition era, right? From 2023 all the way, that saturated bold colors translating into some of the quieter hue, but that's kind of in between the transitional era where, yes, it's a little bit softer approach than 2023. However, it still has a little bit of presence, being that you can use it as a splash of color, or you can replace it as a neutral hue. This sentiment also reflects through the color of the year that we pick for the year. So again, that 2023 splash of color, that's when raspberry blush became the color of the year. And then the following year, blue nova, it has that presence. It still has a little bit of saturation that could be used as a very eye-catching color. However, in comparison to raspberry blush, it's a little bit more softer. It's also in that blue color family. Then in 2025, that cinnamon slate, the blend of browns, the violet, and the grays coming together to that much quieter, much more classic look. So you can see that progression as we're moving year from year. And as we look at 2026, we see a similar story as we did in 2025, Cinnamon Slate. So I mentioned that our team comes together, we have all of these discussions, and what was really interesting, I guess the last time this year, this time around, was this constant conversation about fashion. The correlation between fashion industry and the interior design industry was very much visible for us. I mean, we had multiple conversations around like even just approaching the design, approaching stylistically, we saw a lot of similarities. So, most notably, we spent a lot of time talking about this return of suiting. And like I said, similar to 2023, like when we needed that splash of color from coming from pandemic, what was happening in the fashion was that athleisure wear, right? We were all kind of working from home. We spent a lot of time indoors. So naturally, our dresses, our wardrobe, they all become more casual, more comfortable. And for this coming year, what we saw was this return of suiting, the need to have a little bit of structure, but it's not that in the classical sense of suiting, like a fully buttoned up tuxedo with a tie, and it wasn't as structured as it's been traditionally. Maybe the definition of the suiting is now just as simple as matching top with a matching pants, or even the fabrics being a little bit more fluid. It has more comfort. It's a little bit more tailored to you. But what was different was that, yes, it's casual, it's comfortable, it's a little bit loose, but the detailing, the craftsmanship is where people are really investing. And similarly, in the interior world, it's not that much different. I kind of credit as to the micro trend fatigue, right? I don't know how many of you guys are very active on social, but I certainly feel old when I go on TikTok and some flash in the pan kind of trend or a core is up and rising. And by the time I kind of get to understand, you know what, I get it, it's already like old news. And it's constant, whether it being on social or just culturally, we're just fast paced, fast paced. And with that, I think we're coming to a point where we're a little bit tired of that. We want something that would be a little bit more lasting in our homes, a little more classical style. One of the things that I personally noticed was this return of the walls being built again. Open floor plans was pretty big. But now that we're going back to this traditional idea of a dining room being separate from the living room, or even the return of crown molding, all those details. The interior furnishing is very similar. It's not like flash in the pan, look what I got kind of a furnishing that's coming into play, but it's more of that classical elements that are coming back. But perhaps it's in the piping detail, or if it's that wink of color that really represents your style, that personalizing, that timelessness is really becoming to the forefront. So, I mean, our team got really excited when we were seeing this correlation together, and then, everything on from cultural standpoint, we saw celebrities who are wearing this wardrobe for the red carpet, and then correlating that to kind of like the room scene that was very similar, draped in this brown color, or just kind of, and then the Met Gala when they introduced the theme, it was about the super fine black tailoring. So we definitely got excited and felt like there was something there. And when we came down to selecting the color, what better color than Silhouette AF 655? This color is reminiscent of Taylor's suiting. Silhouette weaves rich espresso hues with refined notes of charcoal. And if you think about the color of the years in the past, it has a similar nuance as cinnamon slate. It also has that intriguing quality of the blue nova from 2024. And also, it still has also that presence from the bolder hues, like the raspberry blush from 2023. So we felt like it was a very natural progression from year to year. And this color can also be designed in so many different styles and spaces, but it definitely has that distinct presence. Like to a tailored touch in fashion, it can really elevate the design that takes it from expected to exceptional. And of course, brown being the color of the year, we also look to see what was happening in the brown color family throughout the year. So Wenge, all the way on the left, was part of the color trends palette from 2023. Now, if you remember that splash of color, the bold saturated hue, this, although it still has that boldness from the depth of the color, it was anchoring the entire palette being in the neutral color family. Then in 2025, we actually featured two shades of brown, which is a leather saddle brown and Chowning's tan. These, in comparison to Wenge, is a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit more casual in that, it has a little bit more gray in it. It's a little bit softer, that you can dress it up or dress it down however you feel like it or suits your style. Silhouette kind of blends in both of them. It has the depth and alluring quality from Wenge, but it also has that charcoal undertone, which makes it really fluid. It's sophisticated. Again, this is one of those colors that you can really dress it up to a formal setting. Like if you do it in a Built-ins or a library, that really feels like very formal space. Or I can also see this color being very much casual in a family room with lots of linens and textures, soft textures coming through. So now let's move on to Color Trends 2026, the palette. So this year we have 8 colors in total, including the color of the year silhouette. And as you can see laid out on the screen, we kind of have it separated into the pales, the softer pales up at the top, with what we call the handsome midtones on the bottom side of the screen. And some of the things that we also talked a lot in forming up this message is this blend of styles or the layering of styles. And we kind of took that to the next level in talking about layering in colors and furthermore layering in textures and materials, everything that comes together to really dress the room. So I'm going to take you through each of the color, first starting with the Enchanting Pales. So what we will see for the next couple of the slides is I'm going to show you a mood board thanks to our partners, including Modern Matter, Artistic Tile, Cravat, Fabric Cut, and Cosentino, who are so nice enough to lend us some of their samples to create the mood board, and our inspiration behind the color. And then you'll also see how we executed those colors into the real life space. So starting with Enchanting Pale, the first color up is Rain Dance. Rain Dance is an easygoing gray undertone, that really brings that effortless versatility into this steely kind of green. It has a little bit of touch of blue, but it's very much in that casual vibe. I love to pair it, with a lot of textures. You'll see the linen or the wicker that really brings out those kind of casual coastal look, if you will. But you can also kind of button it up with a black and white or a charcoal to modernize it. And that breeze of color actually brings the modern element to the room. And here's an example of it. So on the left, you see a kitchen image with the oversized soap sink in this casual kind of, or more like a farmhouse look with the open shelving, all that texture coming through, and that color up on the cabinetry, the lower cabinetry, really just adds an easeability, a breeze of color that just feels natural and comfortable. Versus on the house on the right was, has that whole crown molding that's a little bit more traditional. Even the color that you see on the adjacent room that's in Narragansett from the historical color collection, it kind of has that historical vibe, but this easygoing green definitely adds a little bit of that splash of modern into the space. Next up is Swiss coffee. This is, I'm sure, as a designer, some of them you can claim that this is your go-to color. It's an essential white paint color with just the right amount of warmth to it. And what I like about these pale colors, especially with Swiss coffee, is that it brings all the textures come through the forefront, all the detailing that you're putting into the space. This just soft shade of white in the backdrop really brings those details so that you can really beautify the space in the most detailed way. But you can also punch it with a couple of the other bolder colors, as you can see on this mood board with this kind of mauve velvet fabric and even the wood tone coming to the forefront. So here's how we executed in two different rooms. On the left, you have more of that traditional vibe with the molding, the detailing, but that crisp kind of black accent and the wicker lighting just kind of brings it all together, giving a little bit of wink of color and even that Sherwood tan on its door and the trim kind of frames that white wall versus the one on the right, it's through the built-ins and the wainscoting, and that splash of rain dance just kind of adds a touch of that coastal look, and it brings that modern style, even in the styling with the light fixture and the chair, just kind of bringing in those layering in different kind of styles into the room. Next up is First Crush from our Color Stories collection. This is a really tender hue with a hint of blush. It really brings in that soft warmth to any space. I think this is one of our team's favorite color, and it's so much more like impactful when you see it in person for how you're probably seeing on screen here. So I highly recommend really brushing it out and looking at the sample. It's really, really a beautiful color that kind of blends in that creamy blush with a little bit of gray undertone to make it really user-friendly and versatile into so many other spaces. And like this, like similar to Swiss coffee, that light hue really brings out the detailing and the pattern or even the wallpaper that you might be, or the fabric, the details in the fabric, really brings it up to the forefront. Here are two different spaces, how we interpreted this First Crush color. On the left, you see more of that modern or traditional classic looking with, again, with that big thick crown molding in Swiss coffee. And it's just that delicate kind of warm blanket on the white, on the background, really bringing all the elements that you bring into the space to the forefront. Versus on the right, we take a little bit more of that modern approach, pairing it with silhouette, with kind of what would we call it? Like the faux scotting, where you create like a fake wainscoting through the paint colors in silhouette, but that contrast and even the furnishing that we were bringing into the space adds that touch of modernism, which this plays very, very well. It almost adds that playful touch. It doesn't feel like it's just a feminine color anymore. It just adds a touch of warmth that is very needed in this space. Last on our enchanting pale is a color called Batik. This is where the color, the violet tone and the rose undertone really comes together in this really dusty hue. I think it's really delicate, especially if you pair it with like the handle that you see here that's a little bit glass, reflective elements, but also contrasting it with sort of like a velvety charcoal fabric or a color that you may want to anchor in this space. Here are two spaces that we see in on the houses. The left is more of a transitional space paired with Swiss coffee. I think it's very elegant, very just bringing that lightness into this room. And of course, all that texture, whether it's through the countertop finish or the weathered wood cabinetry on the back, it really comes to the forefront. And on the right was one of the most interesting image that I came across throughout this campaign. It's that, again, it's that same house with that thick crowd molding. And typically I would even default it into like a Swiss coffee off-white trim. But what we did here is paired with a Southwest pottery for mostly color drenching the room, right? The walls into the ceiling, but then that window we painted with batik. And I would admit, I haven't thought of pairing those together in this way, but when we did it, it really, really became like that the batik crowd molding around the windows became the highlight of the room, right? It's just that wink of color that it makes you double take on, wait, was that white? No, it had a little bit of color. That's really interesting. And that becomes like the focal point of the room. Next, we move on to the handsome midtones. These moodier hues really feel equal parts of welcoming and really sophisticated. And just as a side note, when I looked at, the next day we come back to the room again to evaluate the palette. And the second day I walked into the room and looked at the palette with a fresh eye, I was like, you know what? This really becomes a beautiful palette for exterior as well. So we start with this Narragansett green, which is a beautiful black and teal. And because it's from that historical color collection, it really conveys that strong sense of history and the architectural relevance. I think there's multiple ways that you can play around with this color. It's super versatile. It's a stately color. It can be used as an accent or an all-around color. And I especially love it to pair it with that batik, as you see on the mood board here. Just that wink of color that's complementary to Narragansett green, just softens it and balances it, perfect for layering. Here are two spaces that we use Narragansett green in. Again, you can make that statement making space by painting all the walls, the ceiling, and even the baseboard in this powder room. But we also wanted to balance it with bringing some of the lightness into the space. So Swiss coffee on the trim with a window, and then the doors leading up to that room. But of course, if you are too afraid to, or your client may be kind of reluctant to do a dark color in this space, you can always go with a traditional route where you just paint it on the walls and pair it with Swiss coffee for the trim and the ceiling as you see the bedroom on the right. Next up is a Southwest pottery. It's a nuanced hue that really captures the brown and the red tones together. And I really like this mood board where that hint of that silvery blue accent on the back just kind of modernizes it, and that crisp white with hardware finish and even that textural kind of tile, I think beautifully brings the room together. And in the room here, again, another two examples. On the left, really creates that beautiful backdrop for private spaces like bedroom, and warm textures really coming through. And then also on the right, we layered it with so many different colors here. You have Southwest pottery up on the walls, you have Sherwood tan up in the doors, but Swiss coffee on the wainscoting, the trim, and the ceiling. And the adjoining room is also painted with silhouette. So you kind of see four colors, how they all kind of complement each other. And it's not like overwhelming or taking over the space with color. It just feels natural. One of the things that I do also want to point out is when we were having the trends discussion, an ochre color or that acidic kind of yellow, brown tone was coming up and again and again. And rather than translating that into a paint color, we wanted to give a nod to that through our accessories. So you'll see some of these color as you see examples here that kind of nods to additional colors within the trend discussion that didn't quite make it to the final palette, but also noteworthy to kind of have it nodded throughout our photography. Next up is Sherwood Tan. This is a classic tan hue infused with notes of earthy brown. This is a really comfortable hue that really works as a beautiful neutral backdrop color, whether you're bringing textures coming through. I especially love it when you pair it with that natural wood tone or linen or and even a punch of navy as you see here. I think it beautifully complements each other. The next two rooms, it really creates that refined touch into the kitchen that you see on the left, so where we painted all that paneling, even the ceiling beam, the trim, and then the lower cabinets. It almost gives that kind of wood look vibe, but more of the softer hue. You see how we use the Sherwood tan as the trim color on the right. So it takes a second, kind of like a back seat, where First Crush is really the main color in this bathroom and the primary suite, because you also see that in the bedroom adjacent to it. But kind of seeing both of these cases where a color could be used as a dominant color in the space or as the secondary color, kind of supporting the other color. And last but not least is our color of the year silhouette, reminiscent of Taylor's suiting. This really is an elegant color that weaves the rich espresso hues and really refine it. And like I said, it's a great color that you can really dress it up to a formal space or dress it down to more of a comfy, casual, kind of cozy vibe. I always like to think of that family room when you're like snuggling with a fireplace in the colder months. Um, and it also is great for layering different styling as well. So you'll see the pattern or the tile up at the right top, kind of adding that playful touch, or you can really take it into more of the traditional look. And here's what I mean. So on the left room, on the bathroom on the left has a silhouette on the upper wall. So in cases, it is a dark color. So if you don't want to overwhelm the room, you can definitely balance it by painting the wainscoting and the trim and the ceiling and perhaps the door as well in a lighter color. But I also really like the picture on the right where we use silhouette through all the walls, even the adjoining walls, and extending that to the ceiling. It just kind of continuously flows with that dark, alluring color, but it doesn't feel like you're caved in because we have plenty of light source coming in with the Swiss coffee trim and the door that's painted, as well as the light color furnishing that really helps to bringing balance to the space. So, this is the palette of 8 colors for 2026. Like the modern suit, I think these colors, all of them, have really a timeless feel, but also feeling fresh and really distinctive. I think they all really partner well with each other, whether you're pairing them or using them as a standalone. And when you do use these colors in your space, I don't know. There's something about these 8 colors and the chemistry between the 8 colors that really makes the room feel thoughtful and well designed. And of course, at Benjamin Moore, we really understand the importance of the paint reliability and that all the design that you guys put together by speccing the color and our Benjamin Moore color, you're really putting your name to it. So we want to work endlessly to make sure that you'll be proud to spec our colors to make it into your work of art. And with our proprietary colorant and resin, you can really only get our colors using our paint. It's like using a different ingredient and trying to mimic something. So why not go to the source? Our exclusive GenX color technology really delivers gorgeous hues and the durability so that you guys can be proud of your work. And we can proudly say that we offer these high quality, unmatchable premium paint. Just to highlight a few of our products, Aura, of course, we're known for the vibrant colors and the craftsmanship. It's really made from the finest detail. I like to go to our lab to really see them in action, and the precision that they put in through each can of paint is really, really impressive. And of course, Regal Select, our trusted brand for over 60 years, it's really synonymous for durability, washability, and ability to stand up to everyday wear and tear. I love Advanced for especially for built-ins and cabinets. I think they just provides that factory finish for smoothness, for that premium look. And of course, our waterborne ceiling paint has superior hide. It does come in the flattest finish so that you can hide the imperfections and reducing glare. And I would be remiss if I don't mention this. I came across a lot of designers who don't know who their rep is, and we are all here to serve you, to help you. We can provide you with the right tools. We have so many of them, and knowing the right person to ask for it is the key. So here you'll see the URL if you don't know your rep already. I highly recommend for you to visit and see who your rep is. If you have any questions or want to connect with your local rep, really use this. We have a ton of color tools to offer up. So, and we're always here to help you and serve you so that you guys can really confidently spec our colors to make your designs come to life. And last but not least, like I mentioned earlier, these are our industry partners. Thanks to you guys, we are able to create these beautiful mood boards to really deliver our color trends message. So I think we still have time for some Q&A. So let me go on camera.
Hi, Hannah. It's
Hello.
Eric. We do have time. So we're joined with Hannah Yo and also David Underwood to answer any of the questions that you have. So now we're going to proceed to the Q&A session. Now, if you have any questions, kindly utilize the Q&A button. It's located at the bottom of the platform's control panel. All right, Hannah and David, are you ready?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right, first one here. Are the color trends colors available in all Benjamin Moore products?
They are. With the exception of First Crush, which is part of the Color Stories palette. So those are available in premium products, but if you're speccing premium product, it should be available all across.
Terrific. Next one here. Actually, a two-part question. First, how do you decide on the actual paint color names? And then how far back do you go in your file so you don't repeat a name?
Oh, we never repeat a name. We do store all the historical data in our database. So we have this rule where one color can have two different names, but the same name cannot have two different target colors. So with that strict rule, we go back as far as we can to not repeat the name. But know that the color trends palette are not new colors. They're existing. They're selected from existing library. I mean, we have 3,500 colors, so we feel confident that we have some shade that would represent the year as well. And each of those color collections were developed in different time frames. So it's hard to tell, like, that color was born since the year, X amount of year. It really varies, but I think the key here is to know that color trends, all 8 colors are existing in our library, so they're not new.
Perfect. Next one. When will you start planning Color Trends 2027?
Oh, we're starting. It's really a full year process. And like I said, I don't think we ever stop looking to see what's new and what's next. But when we actually do sit down to have a formal meeting about it, that it's around this time. We're only a week away from starting the next one.
All right, next one here. Can you share an example of a project where silhouette was used that stuck with you?
Oh, it's silhouette. I mean, I personally have loved that color ever since I laid my eyes on it, which was a couple of years ago, and I can't pinpoint exactly where it was, but recently we actually painted one of our office in that color, and it's just phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's beautiful every time you see it, even through the photography if you're not there in person. It just the warmth and the depth and the versatility. It's just one of the hues that you really have to see it in person.
All right, next one here. Do all the 8 colors come in all finishes?
Yes, it depends on what product, but as long as the product line let me rephrase that. The sheens that are available in that specific product should be all available, like I said, with the exception of one color stories color, which may not be available in like ultra spec, but hopefully you guys are all specking premium paint lines, and those should be all available in all sheens.
Thanks, Hannah. Next one here. What is the most popular sheen on cabinetry?
Ooh, David, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. So certainly satin is driving cabinet finishes these days. We have seen a trend in lower finishes from some of the specific cabinet manufacturers. They're using like an eggshell type finish or like a 20% sheen. So it's starting to trend lower than higher, if anything.
Thank you, David. Next one here. Is any of the paint brands green certified?
Yeah, actually, all of our premiums and our commercial workhorses, they're all emission certified. They all qualify for LEED credit, indoor air quality credit. We have, environmental product declarations as well as LBC declare labels for some of our products, in addition to pretty much table stakes is emission certified. So we are pretty advocate of a big green advocate for all of our, heavy hitters across the premium and commercial landscape.
Great. Thank you. Next one here. How is the color of the year selected?
How is the color of the year selected? Yeah, so it is after weeks and weeks of discussion. So the way that we kind of work here is, we have all of those conversations, whether it's through a hallway conversation or a sit-down meeting, and we're really synthesizing everything that we're seeing right through the lens of paint. And some of the years, it's really the color that really leads the conversation. And in some other years, it's really thematic. Like one particular idea was coming to life in so many different ways across design industries. And those are the type of conversations that we're having day in and day out. And then we also pull, once we kind of have our chance to talk around, our findings and what we think is worth noteworthy, then we move into colors, or it could be at the same time as well. Every year is so different, but this year I think we kind of it was a simultaneous kind of exercise when we're talking about themes and the correlation between fashion and interior. At the same time, we were noting some of the colors that we've been seeing through trade shows or exhibits or even in fashion, and we kept pulling the colors, creating the palette. And when we go in, we don't really go in as saying like, we're going to have 8 colors this year or 10 colors this year. We're really playing around with the colors to see how we feel about it. And as our messaging is also solidified, then how does that color relate back to the message, or does it represent it the right way? And magically, there's always that one color that kind of drives it. So one of the kind of fun exercise that we do is we take out the color and see how we feel about the palette. Could it live with it? Could it not? We take out the next color and we kind of swap in the colors and see how it plays with other color. And there's always that one color that really makes a difference. And this year it was really that brown color silhouette, not only because it really anchored the palette in its whole and balancing it, but it's also that constant discussion of the browns, the warm color pendulum, and really the black, the brown is becoming the new black. All of those side conversations, as well as the name too, like correlating back to this fashion and suiting and the silhouetting and everything. So it was at that moment, I think we kind of knew, okay, that really is the color.
Thank you, Hannah. Next one here. When you color drench a space, do you use the same finish on the walls and ceiling? Or should you change the finish to accommodate a horizontal versus vertical surface and how light affects the color on those planes?
I could speak from an aesthetic point of view, and David, maybe you can tackle it from more of a technical and practical point of view. From aesthetically, I think you have the freedom. I think our paint is superior enough that it doesn't, just because you have a certain sheen level, it doesn't function as, less than what it should be. I think we have that freedom. To me, I like to unify the space by using the same sheen all around. I think that gives the biggest visual impact. However, if you wanted to color drench, but you also want to add a little bit of dimension. So for instance, with a darker color, I think it's more impactful to have all unified sheen all around to have that, you walk into the space, it's like a beautiful jewel box. Or if you were to use a little bit more of a lighter color and you want to give a little bit of that layering or texture or visual interest, then that's when I would start exploring different kind of sheen levels. But David, I mean, please feel free to add.
No, of course, yeah. From a more of a, a technical point of view is depending on the condition of the wall surfaces as well. So if the walls aren't in great shape or you have textured walls or, it's an older home with a lot of texture or imperfections on that wall, the higher up in sheen you go, the more of those imperfections are going to be highlighted. So in those instances, you might want to lean towards the flats or the matte finishes, especially on ceilings. So if you did want to do, flat on all the wall surfaces, and to Hannah's point, give a little bit of pop of texture with a little slightly higher sheen on the trim work. That makes a lot of sense. If the walls are in great shape, sky's the limit. You can really do as much sheen or as low of a sheen as you want on all surfaces.
Great. Thank you both. Hey, Hannah, can you go back one slide? We have a couple people asking how they can learn more about Benjamin Moore and how they can find their local, their representatives.
Absolutely.
Terrific. And do you want to speak to how they can learn more about Benjamin Moore?
To learn about Benjamin Moore, I mean, there's multiple ways that you can get information, whether it's online, but I would say your rep is going to be the best partner in this. They can provide you with all the tools that you need or answer any specific type of questions. I know a lot of designers work specifically with the rep for that reason. For any particular project that they need help with, we're all here to help you and serve you.
Terrific. We have time for one more, and here we are. What emotional response are you hoping to evoke through the 2026 paint palette?
Ooh, that's a good one. What emotional response? I think is sophistication. I don't know if that qualify as an emotional, but it's a wonderful blend of that kind of elevated look, that sophistication that comes through naturally through the brown color family. And on top of that, this has that beautiful charcoal undertone that kind of adds to the sophistication, but also adding a little bit of that personal touch to really make it your space. And I think at the end of the day, you know your clients, and I'm sure you feel the same way as we do. If you are happy in the space that you live in, and surround yourself that feels like your home, and it just feels naturally, I think that's what we're striving for.
Terrific. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, David. On behalf of ASID, I would like to extend a big thank you to Benjamin Moore. We also extend our thanks to all of you who joined us today. We hope to see you again at our next ASID Brand Spotlight webinar. Thank you.